Hi, everybody. Welcome to Life Stories Podcast, People Helping People. I'm Shara Goswick, your host. My guest today is Nancy Cavey. Nancy is a Social Security, disability, and short and long-term disability attorney. She walks people through the process and makes sure they are getting the benefits that they need. It was a great conversation, as I have walked through this process before without an attorney. She would have been very helpful to me when we had to do this for my son. This is a very involved and crazy process when you are applying for benefits, and there's just so many factors involved in it that a lot of times you need help. You need somebody that knows the law, that knows what you are required to receive, and somebody who is on your side. I believe Nancy is that person. She has written some books. She has some free resources on her website, and I will have those addresses posted below so you know how to get the resources that she has. I think this was a very helpful conversation for anybody that is in this process or thinking about starting the process, or maybe you're overwhelmed because they're right in the middle of it. I thank you for being here, and I ask you to point this conversation to anybody that you think it might benefit. I appreciate you talking to me today. You know, when we applied for disability for my son, it wasn't that it was a difficult process so much. I didn't have a lot of trouble. It just took a long time. It was very involved. I was a little frustrated with some things, but I think that's probably how it goes. And silly me, when the reason we even began was because when my son turned 26, he had to get off of our health insurance, and for him to stay on our health insurance, we had to prove that he was disabled. He had not had any benefits before. Well, I applied in October, and his birthday's in January. Silly me thought it would be a quick process. It took a year. It took a whole year.
That's
Yeah.
short.
A year?
That's short, yes.
Wow. It took a while. And like I said, it wasn't that it was difficult. It was just very involved.
Yes.
But I do appreciate what you do, because sometimes it is hard and it's confusing, and people hit roadblocks and have problems. So, what you do is important. And I know you started this process for a personal reason. You didn't
Correct.
just decide to grow up in one day and be an attorney for disability benefits. Can you tell me, a little bit about your story and how and why you got started?
Sure. My father was a naval aviator in World War II,
Mm,
so kind of a John Wayne guy. When he came back from World War II, he, like most of the GI, went on the GI Bill and got his degree from Hopkins, and rejoined the family insurance brokerage business in Maryland. And one of the things he did do was to purchase a disability insurance policy, thinking he would never need that disability insurance policy.
yeah.
When I was in junior high school, he was diagnosed with having leukemia. So I watched him till the day I graduated make
Right.
that difficult decision of, I'm a John Wayne guy. I'm going to support my family. I'm going to be there, until him realizing that his health was more important than the job. And
Right.
he was able to apply for his long-term disability benefits and his Social Security disability benefits. So I've lived inside of the home of a disabled breadwinner and have seen the
Right.
impact that it has had on a family. And so
Yeah.
my dad's journey really was the reason that I went to law school and specialized in dealing with disability insurance litigation and Social Security disability litigation.
What should people know when they are applying for disability benefits, or maybe it's something they haven't even thought about before they even begin this process?
Well, let me sort of give you a primer. There's two types of Social Security benefits. There is Social Security disability benefits, so
Right.
SSD, and then there's SSI, supplemental benefits. To be eligible for Social Security disability benefits, depending on your age, you will have to have generally worked 20 out of the last 40 quarters. So you've become insured.
Right.
If you look at that paycheck that you get, you see that withholdings for FICAs. You are contributing to the Social Security system and you become insured. Now,
Yeah.
you can lose that insurance status about 5 years after you stop working. On the other
Right.
hand, if you've never worked or you have not worked and your insurance status has ended, you might be eligible for SSI, and it's asset based on your status, whether you're single or you're a couple, what you have in the bank, and assets that you might have. So
Yeah.
there's the two types of benefits that you can get. And the obvious first question we want to know is, have you worked,
Right.
20 out of 40 quarters?
Yeah.
And I would say to you, what's important about that is that there is a misconception that Social Security disability benefits is welfare.
Yeah.
It's not welfare. You contributed to the system.
Sure.
And so you're not asking for anything that is not something that you have earned. And I want people
Yeah.
to understand that.
Do you feel like what you went through with your dad, watching your dad, changes the way you view the people that are applying for benefits? Do you feel like it's more about them and about, and maybe it would be anyway, even if you didn't go through the story that you did?
I will answer the question this way. I understand the emotional
Mm-hmm.
impact that disability has on a person, because your identity for the most part is based on what job you do, how you contribute to
Right.
society. And so for folks just like my dad, it was I'm the John Wayne guy, but I can't be John Wayne anymore, but I don't know who I am
Yeah.
if I'm not John Wayne.
Yeah.
So we've got the emotional, this is who I am, but I'm not sure what I'm going to be now that I can't work. And there's the financial issue. So
Sure.
having been in that environment, I think I bring to the table that understanding. But on the other hand,
Yeah.
you know, I'm a lawyer, and
Right.
my job is, I'm also an educator. My
Yeah.
job is to teach my clients about the five-step sequential evaluation process and the claims process. But
Yeah.
more importantly, my job is to tell their story.
Yeah.
And the story is, what are your symptoms? How do those symptoms impact your ability to function? So, how do I listen to your story and
Yeah.
then tell a truthful story, but one that's about your symptoms and functionality that would prevent you from doing the past work you did in the 5 years before you are claiming you're disabled, or prove that you can't do other work in the mythical,
Right.
hypothetical, not real world national economy that you wouldn't want to do and doesn't pay a living wage.
Right.
Yeah. So, education I think is really key, and I think that was part of my father's identity too.
Yeah.
So, that's what I think is crucial for people to understand.
Sure. You sort of answered a question I was going to ask, in that do you find a lot of people who are trying to get disability benefits that probably don't need it?
No,
No, you
no.
don't.
Well, let me explain. We have a pretty extensive screening process.
Oh,
Ultimately, I take about 11% of the cases that people who call.
yeah.
So by the time they get to me,
Yeah.
uh, we've kind of filtered them out, and
Yeah.
I would say to you, very rarely is it that we don't take a case because
Yeah.
they don't meet our case criteria. So, we're very specific about who we can help and how we're going to help them, and if that
Yeah.
doesn't fit, then I'm not the right fit for them. So,
Right. So do you get people who are having problems getting benefits or applying for benefits? Like, when do they come to you? When do they apply for you? Because you don't need an attorney to apply for these.
you know, when you are applying for Social Security benefits, you are again telling a truthful story about your
Right.
symptoms and functionality. People don't always consider the totality of their medical condition, and they don't understand necessarily what it is they need to prove.
Right.
My philosophy is I would rather have you walk in the door. I would rather help you with the initial application because I hear your story and I'm thinking, okay, well, this is going to be an issue. This is going to be an issue. I need to go prove this. I'm already being a lawyer,
Right.
issues
Right.
and developing proof. So, but I will tell you that, and we have a really good acceptance rate at the early levels because we use something called residual functional capacity forms. I don't know what your son's issues were, but if you walk into my office and you have Parkinson's or lupus or POTS, We Social Security lawyers have developed appropriate forms that we ask the doctors to fill out to address the functional restrictions and limitations. So
Right.
that when that claims examiner looks at the file, looks at the records, they can say, oh, I see why they meet the 5-step sequential evaluation test.
Yeah.
I get cases at all stages, the initial stage, the first appeal level called the request for reconsideration, and at the hearing stage. This is a discouraging process, I think,
Yeah.
on purpose. And we don't want people to give up
Right.
because, at least in my case, if they meet my case criteria, I'm pretty darn sure I'm going to win the case
Right.
at some point, and I'm not going to give up. If I
Yeah.
lose, we'll go to a higher level because that's sort of my philosophy. I'm not
Right.
going to give up because if I believe my client,
Sure.
we're going to fight.
Yeah. That's very good. You've been doing this a really long time. Is there anything that you've learned or things that have changed over the years, maybe for the good, maybe not for the good, in all of this process?
Unfortunately, I would say to you um, that the claims process is just that. It is a process. It has
Right.
gotten longer. It's gotten more difficult, needlessly so. I think there are better ways in which to measure
Yeah.
whether someone is unable to do their own work or other work other than the system that we have. But
Right.
I've been living in this system for a very, very long time.
Mhm.
Um, So I would say to you, part of the problem is that even before our current political environment, Social Security has never, ever been fully funded so that you have
Right.
adequate staff. There have been training issues. Like right now, there's a 25% reduction in staff,
Right.
and that's experienced staff that are
Yeah.
walking out the door without institutional knowledge. Here in the state of Florida, there's a hiring freeze. So
Right.
the local DDS office can't hire anybody.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, if you want the system to work, and that's a big if
Right.
you want it to work, you need
Yeah.
to adequately fund it, and then you need to have the staff and the training. And again, I think ultimately, hopefully one of these days, we can change the criteria by which Social Security disability decisions are made.
Yeah. Absolutely. So let's talk about, you've written some guides, you've written a book. Let's talk about some of that and how you're helping people with things that you've written.
Great. Well, as you said, I think people need to understand the claims process. So
Hmm.
I've written a book about the Social Security Disability claims process, and if anybody wants a copy of it, they can call my office at 727-894-3188 and ask for a copy of it. I give it to all of my prospective clients and my new clients, so that they have this guide that will help them understand what is the 5-step sequential
Right.
evaluation. Just because my doctor says I can't work doesn't mean I'm going to get my Social Security benefits.
Right.
What's the claims process? What do I have to prove, and how do I go about proving it? How does a lawyer get paid? How do you
Yeah.
find the right lawyer? So it's a guide that will help people learn the fundamentals and basics of Social Security disability litigation.
That's wonderful. And I will make sure when I post, I'll have your website, but I'll have your number also. So if people want to get a hold of that, they can. For somebody that's just thinking they might need to apply for this, what is the first step you recommend someone take besides getting that guide?
Well, to answer that question, I think we need to kind of step back.
Okay.
You may have a doctor who has told you that you can't work anymore. That opinion is not going to win the case because the doctor, the Social Security Administration makes the decision about whether somebody meets that 5-step
Right.
sequential evaluation. So you need to have the support of the doctor. And one of the questions that I always want my clients to answer is, do you think your doctor would be willing to help you by completing these residual functional capacity forms? And if the doctor says no, then sometimes I have to tell my clients, you need to go find another doctor because these
Right.
cases, as you know, are hard to
Yeah.
win without the support of the physician.
Yeah.
If your employer is, writing you up because you're having trouble, that's a signal. And you don't want to necessarily wait until you get terminated
Right.
because some employers offer benefits like short and long-term disability benefits. And if you get
Yeah.
fired, you may not have that coverage anymore. And when you apply for your short and your long-term disability coverage, the employer, the disability carrier might say, too bad, so sad.
Right.
You weren't disabled at the time you got fired, even though you may have been
Yeah.
disabled. So if that happens, then I say, if that's happening, I say, look at your pay stub and see if you have short and long-term disability insurance coverage that's being
Right.
deducted from your pay. And if that is happening, you definitely need to find a lawyer who specializes in short and long-term disability litigation because
Yeah.
there's a lot of planning that you got to do before you say bye and or you get yourself terminated. So,
Right.
there's this isn't, you just say, I'm done, walk out the door and apply for Social Security. I would
Yeah.
never recommend that. I think you have to do some planning. And you realized almost too late
Yeah.
what happened if you didn't
Yeah.
plan appropriately. Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. Is there a case that stands out to you, whether it was just it turned out really well, something maybe it was hard, just a case that really stands out to you over the years?
My practice is nationwide,
Wow.
and if you go onto my website, you or YouTube, you will see videos by medical conditions. And
Mm.
I got a call from a union guy in New York who had a progressive visual problem, and he worked
Oh, wow.
on high rises in New York.
Mm.
He's on beams
Yeah.
doing welding. And to get his union pension benefits, he had to get Social Security disability benefits. He said to me, "You're the only lawyer that I've seen that understands this particular medical condition.
Yeah.
I want you to represent me." And he said, "I'm going to move to Florida. You tell me what doctors you want me to see.
Wow.
Move my whole family to Florida because I want you to represent me." It's like,
Wow.
okay, wow. So he moves his entire family to Tampa.
Oh my
Uh,
goodness.
we find the right doctor who specializes in his degenerative eye condition. His doctor fills out the residual functional capacity form. We had to have a hearing, and he did a brilliant job of explaining what he couldn't see.
Yeah.
And the judge awarded those benefits to him on the spot. So,
Wow.
in addition to getting his Social Security benefits, he now got what was most important to him, which was his pension, and he got the group health
Sure.
insurance benefits that came with that pension. So that
Wow.
case is like, well,
Yeah. No pressure. I'm moving my whole family to Florida for you to work
right,
with me.
yeah, no pressure. Yeah. So,
That's awesome.
yeah,
That's great. Well, is there anything I have not asked you about that you want to tell me about?
I think that people need to understand that one, Social Security disability benefits are not welfare benefits.
Right.
Two, just because your neighbor who doesn't look like they're disabled is getting benefits doesn't mean that you're going to get the benefits
Right.
because it's a factor of your age,
Yeah.
your education, the kind of work you did in the past, the nature of your medical conditions. And all of that gets woven in to, as I've said, the
Yeah.
story of symptoms and functionality. And the third thing I think people need to understand is that this process can take if you have a medical condition that qualifies for compassion allowance, which is one which you're going to die within a year, that's a quick decision. But
Right.
depending on where you live, this process can take 1 year to 3 years.
Wow.
And the lawyer doesn't, the lawyer doesn't have control over how this moves
Yeah.
down the track. And so you've got to have a really good support system that will
Yeah.
support you as you supported your son
Absolutely.
in this entire process because it
Yeah.
is a family journey. And
Right.
so many times when I'm talking to a client, I'm on the phone with the spouse
Mm.
because that impacts the family
Oh,
and
sure.
their role, their dynamics. And so
Yeah.
I want I would like people to understand that it's a process, one of which it will impact the family dynamics,
Right.
but that hopefully, you know, they'll understand what has to be proven to win the case, and
Right.
that they'll be a team together supporting not only their loved one, but
Yeah.
supporting any attorney or representative who's trying to help them get their benefits.
Yes, absolutely. And like I said, we appreciate people like you who are fighting to help those that need it. And I've been there, so I know it's so important. This has been wonderful, Nancy. Thank you so much. I'm excited to point people to your website and your guide because that would have been helpful for me had I had that. I would have known a lot more than I did. So thank you so much for sharing all this with me.
And thank you for having me as your guest.
Absolutely. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Take care.
Okay. Bye bye.
Thank you.